Welcome back to CookBook. Here in 2019, we're going to have a few of these episodes, and we're going to come back in 2020. All these obviously presented to you by Sundress Publications. Our guest today is a fantastically talented poet named Barbara Fant, and we are going to be making her favorite cookie, Oatmeal Raisin cookies, and then we're going to get a chance to sit down and talk about poetry and books and Columbus and all manner of things. So, welcome to CookBook. Barbara Fant here, local Columbus legend, and we are going to be making this. You are literally on the side of my bakery.
I don't know that qualifies me as a legend.
Absolutely does not. In our car. Anyway, all right.
Okay.
So we are going to be making Barbara's favorite cookie, which is Oatmeal Raisin cookies. So we found an excellent recipe at the library. Go to your library to find your recipes.
Go to your local
That's
library.
right. So what we're going to add to make the base dough is we've got 1.5 cups of flour. All right. We have 3 cups of old-fashioned rolled oats, which was more difficult to figure out because everything's quick oats and
That's right.
So I looked very silly in a very small part of the store for a little while, which is fine. We've got a tablespoon of pure vanilla extract. All right. So why oatmeal raisin cookies? This is the question.
You know,
why are these the favorite?
I think my mother really liked oatmeal raisin, so I think that's why I'm just hit to oatmeal raisin cookies. And it's probably like the one cookie that I've actually made before.
So instilling confidence that we can actually do this. I like that. So we got a 1/2 cup of sugar. We've got a 1.5 cups. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. No, that's right. That's a cup of brown sugar. We're good.
There you go.
We're good. I read this all earlier.
Okay.
I thought I remembered it. We've got some baking soda. We've got a tablespoon of cinnamon. We've got
Ooh.
1.5 cups of the good raisins.
The magic.
Now, my mom told me I was supposed to boil these, and I didn't. So, sorry, Mom.
Act like they are.
It'll be good.
There you go.
It'll be good. I like how we're making these as an affirmation to your mother, and I'm making it to infuriate mine. That's good. That's good.
Or impress her.
I'm impressed.
There you go.
If the cookies are delicious, then she won't be able to challenge me.
There you go.
Okay, so other than that, you need to have the 1.5 cups of butter and the 2 eggs. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and mix this all together. And listening to 4 minutes of the beaters going is not very good entertainment. So we're going to get this all together, and then we'll get everything on the cookie sheet, and we'll get to talk to Barbara for a little bit while everything bakes about poetry, about Ohio, and about all manner of things happening in the future.
Sounds great.
Yes, we have everything mixed together. The oven is at 350 warming up, and I would love to tell you that everything went flawlessly. And we took it off camera because 4 minutes of mixing is not going to sound good.
That's right.
But since then, there's been a fatality. I put things in the wrong order. And you need to read the recipe better than I did. And I destroyed a hand mixer from the 1980s. Which only one of us could make it to 2020, I suppose.
It happened.
And it was gonna be me.
That's right.
So the hand mixer with a puff of smoke, literally, is now no longer a part of our kitchenware. And now Ms. Barb and I are gonna put our cookies together on our sheets, and we'll get them in the oven. And while they're baking, we'll get a chance to talk about poetry a little bit. So let us get just a little bit messy.
Here we go. All right.
And we will prove that the kitchen mixer did not die for nothing.
It was a soldier. It fought to the end, you know.
And literally, there was smoke at the end. It's all right. So what other sort of cooking, baking do you like to do?
Oh, goodness. That's it. Also, that apple crisp.
You do apple crisp? Okay.
Yeah, I made that, a year ago? That's about it. That is about it.
This show is my only baking that I do, as evidenced by the fatality.
Yeah, it happened. It's okay.
But that's all right.
That's right.
That's all right. So we were joking earlier about Patty Cake Bakery. So Miss Barb is literally on the side of our neighborhood bakery, about 2 football throws away from here. And how did this happen? How did you end up on the side of a bakery?
You know, this is Stephanie Ron's doing. So Stephanie Ron is a local artist, street muralist, and she is wonderful. She's incredible.
The picture's beautiful.
It's beautiful. So she's been in a space where she's highlighted African-American female poets in the city, and I was one of them. I think I'm the 4th mural to go up. And she basically finds spaces. If they let her do it, then she'll say, okay, great, I got a visual for you. And Patty Cake Bakery was kind enough to say, hey, use our space. And
that's awesome.
So that's why I'm on the side of it now.
Fantastic. And they are not a sponsor of this show, but if you ever get a chance, the lemon cupcakes there are incredible.
Oh.
They will mail you things. For those of you not in Columbus, Ohio, they will mail you a cupcake basket.
Oh.
If you order such.
Nice.
For Best of Net, whenever the year is done, we've put out that year's anthology. I get cupcake baskets for all the genre editors.
Ooh, very cool.
They get 6 or 7 of the Patty Cake cupcakes, and
that's super cool.
because if someone's volunteering, if they're not getting paid, you have to send them delicious things as a thank you.
Isn't that the truth?
Absolutely. It's the least I can do.
I did go in there and they gave me a free cookie. I was like, hey, I'm on the side of the building. They were like, great. Have a free cookie. This is wonderful.
No, if I walked in there with you?
Hey, I'm sure you would get a free cookie too. I'm sure.
All right. If these go as poorly as the mixing did, and that they just don't taste good at all, we'll be walking to Patty Cake Bakery and seeing just exactly how.
That's probably like one cookie.
That's one.
Is that one?
We'll do
one.
Is
that two?
Okay.
I don't know.
If
I feel like I need to spread these out.
I feel like I put the right ingredients in, but in the wrong order, so they should still taste good.
Okay.
If they don't, we'll go to Patty Cake and test your free cookie theory.
There you go.
Do you have a favorite cookie there? Did you go Oatmeal Raisin?
I went Oatmeal Raisin.
Okay.
I did.
There
I
it is.
did. That's usually what I go.
They've got, as we talk about Columbus poets, they've got Ruth Alad's favorite cookie there. It's like an ice cookie. It's vegan.
I love Ruth.
And when she won Ohioana, I took her a bag of cookies.
That is so kind.
You gotta celebrate with the desserts. Okay, so we have our cookies on the sheet. Miss Barb's looked well managed and well put together. Mine look like the dead kitchen mixer, but it's all going to be delicious. So we are going to get these in the oven, and Miss Barbara and I are going to get a chance to sit down and talk about writing in Columbus and all manner of things.
Awesome.
Yep. Cookies are in the oven, which gives us a chance to talk about more things than my baking mishaps.
Okay.
No, the baking's going fine.
That's right.
It was the mixing.
It was that part. But it's all right. The cookies are going to be great.
Fantastic.
It was only a little bit of smoke.
This is all true. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here, hi Barley Dog, was I get to see you perform, and when you perform, there is, even in the poems that are come from a sad place, or a place where you're needing to use faith to find any sort of joy, or any of those places, it is always an ecstatic experience. And then I don't get to talk to you about it because there's other things going on, and or I've got to come up and sort of just read things, and it's not as fun, but I do it. And so how, when you write these poems and when you perform them like that, do you cling to joy is essentially the phrase I would use, even when it's trauma sometimes, even when it's violence sometimes, things like that. How do you write in that space and then perform in that space with things that would, I don't know, steal things from me, it feels like, but that's not how you do it.
Man, thank you for that question. Well, I think that I always have to go back to the place. Writing for me is really therapeutic for me. Sure. It's healing for me. It's cathartic, as I think writing is for so many people. Sure. But, you know, people used to say to me all the time, like, you're like the you're the dark writer. Like, you write all of these dark things. But I always say that I'm the testimony on the other side. The fact that I'm still standing and able to tell my story is a testimony in itself. So I think when I am performing, I think the writing piece is one part, but then the performance piece is the healing part for me too. It's the release.
Sure.
So I do have to go back to that place almost to kind of push it out of me. But I always think that who knows who needs to hear that in the audience.
Right.
So it's worth it for me to do it.
Right.
You know.
Well, in the process, and when I ever talk sobriety with people, Hemingway was absolutely wrong. It is not, when he said that, you know, once he wrote it, he could put it down. He had gotten rid of many things that way. Yeah. It's not how it works.
No.
Once you write it, it means that you're going to carry it with you a little bit.
Absolutely.
And so when you write about those things, it's not to put it down. It's to bring it with you and to show it to other people.
That's right.
And what you're able to do is at the end, you're not going to shine a fake light, but, you know, you're standing both in and outside that darkness you were talking about.
Yeah.
And that's not a small accomplishment to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So when you start writing, are you purposefully going back and picking essentially a landscape that you're going to have to work yourself out of, or is it in dealing with it, just the process of writing the poem shows you that little bit of light at the end? Like, what's your process like?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I write in a lot of images. So sometimes I got an image, you know, I just have a metaphor or image and I have to write the story into that.
Sure.
And sometimes it's just the story that I want to tell. So I think when I first started writing, it was really about this healing process and trying to find the light at the end of the tunnel.
Sure.
And Will Evans used to tell me, like, you don't have to tie everything up in a nice, neat bow. You know,
Absolutely.
It can just be left how it is.
Sure.
And so I think as I've gotten older, my writing has been just like these kind of snapshots of these experiences.
Sure.
So it may not completely be the full story or the full healing process or the full joy at the end of the tunnel, but it's just me sharing that piece of my story. Yeah. But you understand.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you're using image and landscape and action and things like that, and you're not using pronouns, or you're not making it, if the action in the scene can be something that's a driving force instead of a concentration on a particular person or a particular event, you move back and forth, there's more power to that.
Yeah.
And it gives, I think, the people who listen to you and read your work that sense of movement, and movement is always hope.
I hope so.
Yeah, well, it's the stuck, it's the stagnation, it's I don't get to leave this scene. And so when you have those sometimes barrage of images, it kicks up the dust, and by the time you get to the end, dust doesn't have to be all gone.
That's right.
But they're going to see either the protagonist or they're going to see the poem in a different version, in a different light than what it began in.
That's right.
And
That's right.
those aren't small things.
Well,
yeah. So, being from Ohio, and when you write poems, you use place a lot. You start in a place, sometimes you leave the place, sometimes you can't leave the place. What does being from Ohio do for your poetry, or is it more of a...
That's a good question. Man. Well, I'm from Youngstown,
Sure.
so I'm not from Columbus, but, you know, growing up in Youngstown, it was an experience. You know what I mean? It was at a lot of times traumatic, but then it was also beautiful in some spaces too. It's kind of a Toni Morrison almost talks about this in her documentary when she's talking about kind of this mix of people. It's just Italians and Irish and Polish and Hispanics. I mean, it's everybody.
Right.
And that's really what Youngstown is. Even though she was from Lorraine, that's what Youngstown was. So growing up, you know, I had that blend of people around me, and so I think that really feeds into my work a whole lot as well. But being in Columbus, I think the writing community has been so powerful for me too. So the reality of being in a place of having all of these writers around me and them helping cultivate the writer in me is super important.
Well, 2-3 dozen poets just in this town alone.
Oh my goodness.
That when you go out on one of those, I'm going to try something. I'm going to really try something different.
Yep, that's right.
There's going to be those 2-3 dozen people that
That's
are going
right.
to have your back if you're feeling alone about it. You can send a note to Will, you can send a note to Maggie or
Absolutely.
anyone and be
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm not feeling sure about this
You're
kind
right.
of thing.
Yeah.
And there's enough of us, and that's even a crowd that's, you know, under 50. You go over 50 and we've got all these
My
great
goodness.
professors, and
That's right.
you talked about the dance group and your upcoming trip, and
Yeah.
they're just people leading us to places where we get to feel safe, even if we're not doing safe work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So like when I've taken the time to write about addiction
Mhm.
in Ohio,
Mhm.
you end up getting things taken up by the people at Maryhaven or Coma Recovery,
Mhm.
or even the new anthology that came out from OSU,
Mhm.
not far from here.
That's right.
The whole people just sort of rise up, and they're with you when you're doing those things that might not always feel safe.
That's right. I wouldn't be the writer that I am had I not been from Ohio. You know, I think
Sure.
I would be completely different.
So what, you're doing the thesis now, you're finishing the MFA, you've
Yep.
got like a version, it's done.
Yes.
Okay. And so
It just turned in.
this grows and expands a little bit, and you
Mhm.
said you've got a title?
Yes.
Okay.
It's called My Gangsta, My Garden,
Okay.
which was really just this kind of play on the term like my G.
Sure.
You know, and so where I'm from,
Mhm.
this place, but then also the people around me become characters in the
Sure.
actual collection.
So how much of that garden how much of Ohio is part of that garden? How much?
I mean, a lot of it. A lot of it.
When
yeah.
when you talk garden
Yeah.
in that phrase, in that title, what is that?
What
What's the
is the
garden
garden?
in it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is, yes, Ohio,
Sure.
yes, the place of my birth, Youngstown, Ohio, but also
Just because I know you a little bit, I think it's people.
it is people.
Yeah.
It is people, but it's also me.
Okay.
It's my own body and
Sure.
how I am, healing and processing and tending to my own garden.
Sure.
You know.
Absolutely. So it's as personal as it is sort of environmental
Absolutely.
things like that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what are all these poems? What went into the thesis? Are these new things?
Yeah, I mean, some of them are new.
Okay.
Some of them are things I've been sitting on for about a year, year and a half.
Well, sometimes you carry those things.
Oh
Like,
my
I
goodness.
once wrote an entire
Yeah.
book called "As We Refer to Our Bodies." It was like a 140 poem sequence thing, and they were terrible. Like none of the poems were good. But you know what? The title was good.
That
I like
title
that title.
was good.
And that
I like
title.
that title. Yeah.
You take the first book thing, you know.
Oh wow,
But,
very cool. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're going to carry them much longer, and
Yep.
it works out.
Yeah.
Okay, so you turn that into the book. You're going to Africa.
I'm going to Africa. Oh my goodness, yes.
Okay. you come back. You said you're in between jobs now. What's going to be next after when you get home?
Yeah, so hopefully a lot more writing and performing.
Sure.
Some commission work has come up too, which
Awesome.
is cool. And then I have my LLC, which is Barbara Fant, and so I'm doing some contracts working with some arts organizations.
Fantastic.
So Thurber House is a part of that. I'm still working
Sure.
at Transit Arts, and I'll be coming on board with Harmony Project soon too. So,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So when's all that get underway? Just when you get back?
Yeah, January.
Okay.
So January, everything really kicks off. So
Okay.
I mean, I've been teaching at Transit Arts for a long time.
Sure.
So I'm just continuing that, and Thurber House here and there.
Sure.
But then yeah, Harmony Project will be new. I'll be an artist director there. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now you know where to find Barb when she gets back from her many travels from Los Angeles and from Africa and all manner of things. And I highly recommend, if you get a chance to hear her read, or if you just like want to pay her to read somewhere, highly recommend doing that.
Aw,
She is my favorite live performer of poetry
Oh my goodness.
in Columbus. And anytime I get a chance to read with Barbara, sometimes I invent events and just like, Barbara, could you read?
Oh man, I'm always
so-
honored to do it. So.
Find Barbara. Be on the lookout for the book when it's finally a book.
Yes,
which
when
will
it's
happen.
finally a book.
At some
Pray.
point. That's
Okay.
right. That's right. And we're gonna see how these cookies turned out. So thank you for joining us for Cookbook. I know Sundress has an open reading period for short story collections right now. So submit, and we'll be back in a month or two with Nick White.
Nice.
To be our next guest.
So awesome. Very cool.
Thank you for coming to Cookbook.
Thank you.